I mean, today was a little bit hotter. It definitely felt like two different matches. I think it kind of was.
Two matches, two different players, one trophy, and it wasn't going to the woman everyone expected. That's the story coming out of a final that never should have needed a second day. Rain had already forced the tournament to hit pause less than 24 hours earlier, and when the players finally walked back out to finish what the weather interrupted, something had clearly shifted. The player who looked sharp and in control the day before suddenly couldn't find her footing. Meanwhile, her opponent, who had struggled to get into rhythm on day one, came out transformed, sharper, steadier, and playing with far more conviction than she had shown just a day earlier. Sitting down afterward, the runner-up didn't try to dress it up. She admitted the match genuinely felt like two separate contests stitched together. Hotter conditions on the second day changed the feel of everything, she said, but more than that, something inside her own game just wasn't clicking. She pointed out that the roles had essentially reversed. She had been the sharper player the day before, and her opponent had turned that around completely once play resumed. It wasn't something anyone could have planned for. Weather delays, restarts, shifting momentum. Those factors don't discriminate, and both players were left adjusting to circumstances neither of them chose. Her coach echoed that same sense of disruption. During the pre-match warm-up, he'd actually asked his hitting partner to slow down the practice serves, trying to recreate the rhythm of what was coming. It turned out to be a smart instinct. Returns that had felt automatic the previous day suddenly felt unfamiliar. He noticed their opponent leaning more on consistency than power in the early going, choosing placement over pace, which meant fewer of the big second serves he had prepared to face. Still, he shrugged it off as part of the process. Every matchup requires adapting practice to mirror an opponent's specific style, whether that means facing bigger pace, more spin, or more slice. Sometimes that preparation pays off immediately. Other times, like this one, it doesn't quite translate, and that, he said, is simply part of competing at this level. Then there was the atmosphere itself. Nobody expected a Monday final, thrown together on short notice because of the previous day's postponement, to draw much of a crowd. Instead, the stands were packed, and the energy inside the venue was loud, sustained, and unmistakably one-sided in its enthusiasm. The runner-up admitted she's often too locked into her own focus to fully register how intense a crowd actually is in the moment. Her perception during a match, she explained, tends to be very different from what people are experiencing from their seats. But, looking back on it, she said it was genuinely special to see that kind of turnout for a rescheduled Monday match. Even in defeat, she made a point of saying she would always choose to compete in front of an electric crowd like that over playing to an empty stadium. That's a sentiment she'd already shared in her runner-up speech just minutes earlier, and she meant it just as much sitting in the interview room. Asked to sum up the last day, her answer was simple, exhausting. It had already been a demanding week, arriving without much practice time, then being forced to play match after match with almost no recovery in between. Add in a delayed start, a suspended match, and a second day required just to finish the final, and the toll was obvious. She described feeling mentally and physically drained now that it was finally over, though she was quick to credit the tournament organizers. She acknowledged how difficult the decision must have been for them, and said they'd done an impressive job trying to salvage the schedule and still deliver two competitive finals on the same day, despite conditions completely outside anyone's control. There was barely time to process any of it, though, because another tournament was already waiting. In just 2 days, she'd be expected to compete again, this time in a completely different city. When asked how she planned to turn things around with almost no break, she admitted it wasn't ideal, but also said it wasn't new territory for her. A new location comes with a new hotel, a new court, and new surroundings, she explained, which oddly enough can offer a small mental reset even without extra rest. Her plan was straightforward. Take today to recover, ease into tomorrow, get a feel for the new conditions, and then simply show up ready to compete. She even noted there can be a silver lining to a tight turnaround. When there isn't much time to dwell on a tough loss, you're forced to shift straight into competition mode instead of overthinking what just happened. The conversation naturally turned to her opponent, and the respect in her voice was obvious. This was the biggest title of her young career, and the runner-up didn't hesitate to praise her rise. She called her a great ball striker and a fierce competitor, someone who has quietly built momentum over the past few seasons and is now translating that progress into real results, including wins over several top-ranked players this year, herself included. She broke down what makes her so difficult to face: a tricky left-handed game, a deceptive serve that sets up her next shot, and clean, confident ball striking. She'd noticed her working hard in the gym too, clearly focused on adding strength and improving her movement, improvements she expects will come naturally with time and experience. But what stood out most to her wasn't just the tennis. It was the way her opponent has carried herself through a level of attention and pressure that few young players ever have to face. Representing the Philippines has turned her into a genuine phenomenon, with passionate support following her at every stop, and the runner-up said it's remarkable to watch someone handle that kind of spotlight week after week with so much composure. To her, that maturity says as much about her opponent's character as her game does. She closed by saying she has real respect and admiration for her, both as a competitor and as a person, and that whatever she's brought to the sport recently has been genuinely refreshing to watch.